All right, October is not yet over, and I've already read 4 books this month, which is a high number for me compared to what I have been reading in the past year. Uh, but they've all been fiction books, and I wanted to talk about them because they're so different, but also both of these types of books have really hooked me like crazy. And I've really just been enjoying the process, but also feeling a little bit guilty about it. So that's what I want to get into here. It'll be a short one, but maybe hopefully a fun one. So this month so far, and I have my notes here, I've read basically books by Michael Connelly and by Sean Russell. So Michael Connelly, known for The Lincoln Lawyer and the Harry Bosch series that you may have seen on TV. I had read The Poet many years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, and I followed up on the same character, Jack McAvoy, and continued reading the 2 other books that came out of the series. Scarecrow, I read that in October by Michael Connelly, and Fair Warning, also by Michael Connelly. And by the way, these are both in audiobooks. I then also I moved on to the Lincoln Lawyer series. I read the original Lincoln Lawyer, which I did not even put down in my notes here. And then I finished reading The Brass Verdict, which is the second book in the Lincoln Lawyer series, also by Michael Connelly. So I really read 5 total books, 3 Michael Connelly, and they're all audiobooks. Okay, and then contrast to that, and this is me going on walks or if I'm driving, and that's when I'm listening to these audiobooks, which have been fantastic and just gripping, and I couldn't wait to like go on a walk again to follow up with the story and so on. They've been fantastic that way. But then when I'm home, sitting in my reading chair or in bed, the book that I'm reading are Sean Russell's Moontide and Magic Rise series. So these are now fantasy fiction, whereas Michael Connelly was more just regular, fiction, not fantasy. I read World Without End and Sea Without Shore. Seems like it's a 2-book series for this. I came upon Sean Russell because I read Initiate Brother and the Gatherer of Clouds many years ago, multiple times. I finished the paper book right now a few months ago. I think I finished that in September. And I just wanted to see more of what this author had done. And I just thought he'd just done those 2 books and moved on, but he hadn't, so I was really mistaken. I would say when I started reading World Without an End, it started off very slow, and this is the first book, and I almost felt like I was having a hard time getting interested in it. But it had some descriptions of nature which really hooked me, because that is the way I like to. It really calls on me because of the way. Here, let me just read one from you from this back of the second book, and this is really, the whole book is peppered with these kind of descriptions of nature. This is just the one that I wish I had marked these pages and come back to them. I did not, but that just means I'll have to go back and read these books again, which seems amazing to do again. But I'll just read this one description here that is just goes all through the books. All right, here we go. Autumn had come down off the northern hills and spread like a tide of copper and crimson and gold across the woods and meadows of Farland. It flowed slowly, day by day, through gardens and along hedges, until it came at last to the city of Avenel, where the reflections of the turning trees cast their dying colors on the waters of the harbor, where they looked like the wavering reflections of flames, and the tide turned and swept this fire silently out to sea. See, when I'm reading this, like I'm seeing this time lapse of this city by the ocean that is just changing into fall colors. The greens and the blacks are turning copper, crimson, and gold, and almost it's like a wave of that sweeping, getting close to the water, and then the trees are turning. And the visual is just so clear in my head when I read this. And the whole book is full of this. And I loved it. This is the stuff that I kind of wait for. It's like you're reading, and you're seeing a plot, and you're seeing some dialogue, and then suddenly you see one of these paragraphs that just sets the scene, and they're just so delicious, I think. And I noticed that I was reading these Sean Russell's books with this beautiful description with the same fervor as I was reading Michael Connelly's book, an audiobook, when Michael Connelly does not have anything close to this description, especially of nature. Now, if you're familiar with Michael Connelly's work, you know, his characters are usually in a big city somewhere doing some kind of a city job in the present day, or maybe in the 90s or 2000s. And these books were mostly taking place in LA, concrete everywhere, roads everywhere, lots of descriptions of which highway they took to get where, and which turn they made, and so on. And the protagonists in these cases are they're very I mean, I think they all have emotions, but they're very what do you call it, you know, they're just very task oriented people. Like they're either Jack McAvoy, who's a journalist, Harry Bosch, who's a detective, and Mickey Haller, who's a lawyer. So these are all very analytical jobs, I think, in some way. I mean, yes, they have an emotional component to them, but they're all very, very analytical things. Um, and I think the book and the tone follows their personality, but it also follows the personality of LA, which doesn't have these wonderful descriptions of nature, which, you know, I have been to LA a few times. I think if you wanted to, you could write about it beautifully. If you know any authors who have written about LA in that nature-esque way, like the one that I read from the Sean Russell book, then let me know in the comments. I'd love to read them. So I was noticing that I loved reading both the books, and I can't get enough of it. And I'm reading the next two books in the series by Sean Russell also, while reading more of the Lincoln Lawyer books as I go on walks. And just really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was really thinking about that contrast, feeling good about having that kind of contrast, but also realizing that I need that balance. I need to have books like this in my life. I'm kind of feeling a little sad already because I'm kind of getting to the end of Sean Russell's you know, books. I'll be, by the time I'm, you know, in a few months' time, I'll probably be done reading all his books, and that feels a little bit sad. And I'm sure I'll get to that stage with Michael Connelly as well. And not saying these are the only two good authors. There's a lot of other fiction authors that write beautifully like this. You know, Ursula Le Guin is one of my favorite authors in the series. Stephanie Powell Watts, I recently discovered her short stories that were amazing. So I'll link to some of those in the description. But anyway, I just wanted to share that this was really fun, but in very different ways, and how just beautiful some of the writing was, but also with you know, Michael Connelly's, you know, he's got, the plot is just pulling you along. There's so much momentum in his writing, and he used to be a journalist, and I think I see some of that style coming out in his writing as well, which is fun. You know, that's where it comes from. So you know, I guess that's really what I'm trying to, you know, share here, is there's a joy in these different styles that have been very fantastic. Especially for the month of October, really getting me back into the momentum of reading in a way. The one drawback I'm having is, and I'll just be candid because I don't think there's a solution here, but I've really barely read any nonfiction this month. I saw a video on YouTube by Daniel Lieberman, and ended up buying his book called Exercised, and I've been reading that. And I'm just halfway through the book. I mean, it's written very well for a professor. Most professors, I find their writing isn't great. But Daniel Lieberman's writing is fantastic, very approachable. He's really good at setting the scene, telling the story of sometimes what is very, you know, dry information. But I'm maybe drawn less and less to reading nonfiction, and I was starting to judge myself because I thought reading nonfiction is maybe more intellectually uppity, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that those kind of biases were coming out because I'm reading all this fiction back to back to back, and I was kind of judging myself that I'm maybe taking an easy route to reading. I'm not reading any difficult stuff, that I should be reading some difficult stuff, and those shoulds, musts, and ought tos are kind of coming out of the woodworks, that I'm having to grapple with, and that makes sense. In the past, I guess growing up when I was doing most of my reading was textbooks, which is mostly nonfiction. So somewhere nonfictions is got a higher status than fiction maybe in my mind that I did not realize until now. So it's coming out. I'm glad, because it needs to be squashed, because fiction is amazing. And I wish I could write like some of these authors. I know I can't. I can attempt a line here and there maybe, but that's it. So yeah, October's been a month of nonfiction, different types of nonfiction with just two authors, and some of my biases came out. So that's been, I would call that a win for the month of October for reading. The best part of all of this is that my joy for reading has kind of rekindled, because up until October, maybe September, I read 4 books, but for the whole month of September, I read 4 books, and I've already read 5 books in October so far, and I probably will finish a couple more by the end of the month. So up until then, my reading was really slow. So this has really given me a boost of, morality, that I could, not morality, morale. I said it wrong. It's given my morale a boost that reading is back, and it's gotten my brain wired to reading, and it's gotten me better insight about who I am as a reader. So all of those are great wins, and I'm glad I found them, and I just thought I'd want to share those with you. So I hope you're reading something good. If you are, let me know in the comments. I'd love book recommendations all the time, and I'll see you in the next one.